Welcome to my channel Rise and Shine. For the elders, I offer my respects, and for the younger ones, I send lots and lots of love. In my last video, we have seen that Narendranath Datta was a brave, kind, and honest boy. I would like to request all the younger ones, please close your eyes and listen the fourth part of the story. Naren grows up. As Naren grew older, he took more interest in reading books and did not play games so much. He did well in his schoolwork, but his father took him away from Calcutta for 2 years and he stopped going to school. When he returned, he had to do 3 years' work in 1 year. When the time for examination drew near, he studied very hard. He passed the entrance examination in the first division. He was the only student from his school to do so that year. He then went to the Presidency College for 1 year. The next year, he joined the General Assembly Institution, now known as the Scottish Church College. The professors at the latter college were surprised to see how intelligent Naren was. The principal, Professor W. Husty, said that he had never seen another boy like Naren. Studied hard and read many books of all kinds and on all subjects. He passed the first arts examination in 1881 and obtained his BA degree in 1884. Naren also studied music for 4 or 5 years. He learned to play several instruments and he became known as a very good singer also. Because he sang well, he was often invited to parties. He enjoyed the fun at the parties, but he found more pleasure in intellectual discussion. He would often argue about serious subjects with his friend and sometimes with older people. He was very good at argument and few people could match his skill. At this time, Naren became interested in the problems of religion. Like many other young men at that time, Naren became a member of the Bramhasamaj and attended the lecture of Sri Keshav Chandra Sen. He was often asked to sing songs at the Samaj. But the question which troubled him most was whether there is a God or not and whether anyone had seen him. He visited many religious leaders, including Maharishi Devendranath Tagore, for an answer to this question, but none could satisfy his doubt. Naren meets Sri Ramkrishna. Naren was interested in religion, but he had lost faith in many of the teachings of Hinduism. He did not know what to believe. He had gone to many religious people, but they could not help him. One day he decided to visit Sri Ramakrishna. Sri Ramakrishna was a great Hindu saint. He came from a village called Kamarpukur in the Hooghly district. At that time, he was living at the Kali temple of Dakshineshwar near Calcutta. He lived a life of prayer and meditation and thought always of God. Many people came to him and he solved their spiritual problems. Naren had heard about Sri Ramakrishna from his teacher, Professor Husty, and from one of his relatives. He had also seen him at the house of his relative in Calcutta. Now he decided to visit him at the Kineshwar to see whether Sri Ramakrishna could help him in any way. Naren took a few friends with him. Sri Ramakrishna received them kindly, and Naren sang 2 songs at his request. Then Sri Ramakrishna took him into another room. He treated Naren as if he were a dear friend who had just returned from a long journey. He wept for joy and fed Naren with sweets with his own hand. Naren could not understand all this. He thought that perhaps Sri Ramakrishna was a madman, but he promised to come again. When they returned to the other room, Sri Ramakrishna began to speak about God. He said that we can see and speak to God just as we see and speak to our friends. Naren did not know what to think. Sri Ramakrishna had acted in a strange way, but he also seemed to be a great saint. About a month later, Naren came again, this time alone. Sri Ramakrishna treated him kindly and asked him to sit by his side. Then he touched Naren. At this touch, Naren had a strange experience. The walls and the room seemed to whirl round and then vanish. He thought that he was about to die, and he became frightened. He cried out, "What is this that you are doing to me? I have my parents at home." Sri Ramakrishna laughed and began to stroke Naren's chest. He said, "All right, let it rest now. Everything will come in time." At this touch, the strange experience was gone, and Naren found everything the same as it had been before. A similar thing happened when Naren visited Sri Ramakrishna for the 3rd time. He again lost consciousness at the touch of Sri Ramakrishna. He could not understand what had happened. He had a strongly body and mind, but this saint could do with him whatever he liked by a mere touch. He could not explain how it happened. However, he understood that Sri Ramakrishna was no ordinary person. He came to have deep respect for him, though there were still many unanswered questions in his mind. The master and the disciple. Naren now began to visit Sri Ramakrishna as often as he could. He felt that Sri Ramakrishna loved him more than anyone else did. He was always eager to see him. Sri Ramakrishna was confident that Naren would someday become a great man. He mentioned this to his other devotees, telling them about Naren's many good qualities. He said that other devotees were like stars, but Naren was like the sun. He said that Naren was a liberated soul who had been born to help other people. Sri Ramakrishna had great confidence in Naren. He knew that he could never do anything wrong. Naren also felt deep love for Sri Ramakrishna. Although busy with his studies, he often went to Dakshineshwar. Sri Ramakrishna was delighted with Naren's song and often went to Samadhi listening to them. Naren had an independent mind. He would not believe anything unless he could understand it for himself. Many times he would argue with Sri Ramakrishna if what he said was not logical to him. Once, Sri Ramakrishna said, "If you do not accept my view, why do you come to me?" Naren replied, "I come because I love you. But that does not mean that I will accept your words without thinking of for myself." Instead of being annoyed, Sri Ramakrishna was pleased to hear this. He was glad that Naren was so independent minded. And so time went on. Naren became more and more devoted to Sri Ramakrishna, who gave him various instructions which he followed. Sri Ramakrishna taught him how to meditate, and he became more and more interested in meditation and other spiritual practices. But Naren had to pass through a time of great trouble. Early in 1884, his father died. Naren was the eldest son, and so he became the head of the family. His father had never saved any money, and Naren found it difficult even to get enough food for the family to eat. He often went without food so that his family might have more. He began to look for a job, but without success. Later, he worked in a lawyer's office, as a school teacher, and at other such jobs. They were not permanent, and he had difficulty in supporting his family. In spite of these difficulties, they at least had a house to live in. But some of these relatives chose this time to claim a large part of the house as theirs. The case went to court, where it dragged on for a long time. Luckily, the case was decided in favor of Naren's family. That's all for today. Today, we have heard that the question which troubled Narendranath Datta most was whether there is a God or not, and whether anyone had seen him. At last, he found Sri Ramakrishna, who was a great Hindu saint. Sri Ramakrishna said that we can see and speak to God just as we see and speak to our friends. Sri Ramakrishna was confident that Naren would someday become a great man. He said that the other devotees were like stars, but Naren was like the sun. Early in 1884, his father died. After this, Narendranath Datta was facing so many trouble. Now, I like to request all to close your eyes and try to visualize all these things what you have listened today. Good night.